Welcome back to the Crochet Crowd. My friends over at yarnspirations.com. I'm your host Mikey. We're gonna do a genie pattern today, and it's a Stepping Textures Crochet Afghan. It's actually two different textures that are being worked at the same time in different panels. So whenever you look at the white here, you're seeing the houndstooth stitch, and when you see the blue, you're seeing the bobble stitch. So it's actually really neat. It's not the popcorn where you have to take off the loops in order to form it. So she's done a great job, and she's also done it in a way that it makes the bobbles pop out the right side, which is even better, right? So what we have here is a really easy repeat, and I have done a crochet diagram for you. She's recommending a 6mm size J crochet hook, and she used a red heart with love with this, and you can get this information for this. So what we can see here is that the beginning all the way into the end of the 14th row, we are just going to be repeating the one section. So this, we're gonna be starting off with the bobbles first, and then we're gonna be switching off to this. As a tutorial that I'm doing here, I don't need to show you all of that. I can show you how the stitching is done, and I'll show you the diagram in just a moment. So here's the crochet diagram that we whipped up for you, and we're gonna get ourselves started. The multiple is 27 plus 29, so you chain in multiples of 27, and when you're pretty satisfied with it, just remember that it is going up and down, so the chain will compress onto itself. So that's why the chain is longer than what you would think it would be in order to get this thing to go. So what we have today is that when it says to do 164 chains, that's equaling everything that you want to know. So if you want to change the size, you just keep going 1 through 27, 1 through 27, and when you're happy with the width of it, then just chain an additional 29 and you'll have this. So we're gonna get ourselves started on the beginning chain. The one thing I like about this is that there is no two together stitches at all. It's just a matter of skipping the ones that are coming into the peak. So you're just skipping what's underneath instead of doing that, and you'll see that throughout this whole thing. So let's begin, and we're going to be using a 6mm size J crochet hook today in order to play. And what I'm going to do is that once I show you how this is done, we're then going to jump into the next section. You should notice that row number 2 is the same here. So whenever there's a change in it, row number 2 is the barrier before it's starting the next section, and you'll see that happening throughout. So let's begin. So let's begin, and you can either chain 164 to match what Jeannie's done, or you can do your multiples of 27 and then you can add 29 at the end. So I'm going to do one multiple of 27, and then I'll put in my 29, and that will give me the look of what the swatch is. So let's do that, and choose whatever story you want to do, and just start chaining and get the counts that you need, and I'll be right back in just a moment. Once you're ready to go across, so I've done one multiple of 27. I said that I'm happy with it, so then I added 29, and this will give me the look of the swatch. So whatever size that you decided to go, we're gonna start with this next. So we're gonna go second chain from the hook, and we're going to put in 2 single crochets into the very first one. So second chain from the hook, and then we're gonna start going in the down motion of the chevron. So we're gonna go down. So the next 12 in a row will each be a single crochet. So I want you to count those, and I'll just stay silent as you do it. So 1, and once you have your 12 in, so you had your 2 at the very beginning and then the next 12, you're going to skip 2 stitches and then go to the 3rd stitch and do 12 single crochets in a row again. So I'll stay silent as you do it. So 1, So I've now just completed 12, and so that's going in the up motion. You see the natural bend that it did. So in the top of the peaks that we're going to do is that we want to put in 3 single crochets there. So this is the next stitch. So 1 and then another one and then another one. So 3 into the peak. So now you're gonna come down the hill. So how many in a row do you think you have to go down? If you went down 12 here, up 12 here, you're going down 12. So the next 12 in a row are each a single crochet. So I'll count those quietly to myself. So starting out with 1, so I just did 12 going down. So if we need to go and we're doing and going back in the up motion, how many do we skip in order to get that? Do you remember? You have to skip 2. So 1 and 2 and then go 12 going back up. And so eventually you're gonna come to the end of the party, but if you're coming to there and you're coming to the next one, you remember that when you get to the next one after the 12 you put 3 and then you go 12 down. So you keep going up and down. But eventually the very final one you're going to do 12 coming up the other side. So it's gonna be the very end. So you're finishing in the up motion on an edge. So 1, 2 and I'll count quietly. So I've just now finished the 12th and my very last one that we're going to have on your row is going to be 2 single crochets into the very last one. So I'm gonna turn my work and just lay this flat and you can see that we have the up and down motion already established. Let's back you out so that you can see that, and that's what we have. So when you look at it from the chevron point of view in the swatch, this is exactly what we have. So we have 1 chevron and then another. Let's begin row number 2. As we begin row number 2, I want you to remember that when we're doing this and the edges, there's always only going to be 2 stitches that make up the final edge. So it's what that stitch is dependent on the row you're on. But there's always 2 in the first and always 2 in the end, and then in the middle there's always 3 in the peaks. So as we begin row number 2, we're going to start off and we're going to chain 3. And in the very same one where that chaining is coming out of, I want you to double crochet. Now how many down do we need to go? It's always gonna be the same. It's gonna be 12. So you're gonna do 12 single crochets going down. I'll count quietly to myself. So 1, so I've now just done 12 going down. So the very next 2 stitches are the middle. You can see that. So the next 2 are the middle, and I've counted correctly. So I'm gonna skip over those 2 middle and immediately just jump to the 3rd one over and start double crocheting up, and I will do 12 in a row like I did going down. So do that. So 1, my 12th one is the next one, which is this one. So once you go 12 up, you're already in the grouping of 3 single crochets here at the peak. The very next one is the second one of the 3, and that one is going to always have 3 double crochets in it, so it can do that turn for you. So 1, 2 and 3, and then you're going to sweep down, and how many in a row before you go. So you can either count it, or you can look at where the 2 middle ones are and say, okay, I'm skipping those. But if you would like just to make sure, then you can just obviously count down 12. So 1, this is my 12th one going in, so the 2 middle ones should be next, and they are. So then I'm gonna skip over those and I'm going to go up. So if I'm continuing along, when I get to the up motion, then if I'm going up and it's a peak, there will be 3 at the top, and then coming down, and then you'll skip over the ones at the base. But eventually you'll come to the end like I am. So you're gonna go 12 up, we're there, which should take you to the second last stitch. So I'll stay quiet now. So I'm on number 11, and this is the 12th one going in, and then I have the one last stitch that's right on the end. So the very end one will be 2 double crochets, and this completes off then row number 2. And so you can lay it down and you can see how it's all working together. So let's now move on to row number 3. As we begin to do row number 3, we're going to chain up 1, and we're gonna put 2 into the first one, and then 1 single to the next. There's then going to be a bobble, which I'll show you how to do, and then there's 2 singles, a bobble, 2 singles, a bobble, 2 singles, a bobble, and then 1 single left. The actual repeating of this here in the instruction is showing it like this. Okay, so it's showing in groups of 3 stitches like that. So when it says repeat 4 times, that's what it's meaning. So it's repeating of a single, a bobble, and a single. You're then going to jump over the 2 middle ones and skip, and then start up and single on the other side, and then bobble, 2 singles, bobble, 2 singles, and etc. And then eventually get back to the top and then keep on going. So because bobbles naturally fall to the back side of a project, we're currently row number 3, we're on the wrong side. So row number 2, as we indicated here, is the right side. So this will naturally have those bobbles and textures to fall to the good side of the project. Let's begin row number 3. So when you're on row number 3, this is what we're going to do. We're going to just chain up 1, and we'll do 2 single crochets in the very first one. So 1 and 2. Now the next one is going to be 1 single by itself, and then we start the bobbling. So to do the bobbling, it's 3 double crochet together using the same stitch. So wrapping in into the same one, pull through 2 and hold it, and wrap and into the same one, pull through 2 and hold it, and then do it again. So in, pull through 2 and hold it. Once you can see that there's 4 loops on here, pull through all 4 and the bobble is complete, and you're going to move on and you're going to single crochet then the next 2 stitches in a row. So 1 and 2, and then start another bobble. So they're made up of 3 double crochet together. Once you get used to this pattern, you'll be able to whip these off pretty fast. Okay, pulling through, and then 2 singles in a row. So 1 and 2, and you see that the bobble is popping out to the back side of it, which is the good side of the project in this case. So we essentially want 4 bobbles going down one side and 4 bobbles going up the other, if that helps you to know that. So when your bobbles in, single crochet the next 2. So I can see that there's only 3 bobbles so far. I'm gonna want 1 more. but if I was counting I could I would know that for sure. I'm doing a lot of puff stitching right now personally, so I've been I may screw up on this one. Okay, and once the last bobble's in, you're just gonna single into the last one that's left. So you should see 4 bobbles here. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. So I've now got single, so I'm gonna jump over the 2 middle and I'm going to single on the 3rd one away, and then I start bobbling again. So let's do our bobble. And then there's 2 singles after a bobble, and then another bobble, and then 2 singles after that, and then another bobble. So you should see 4 bobbles going up before you get all excited. And then another bobble. This is the 4th one. And then after this one there's 1 single crochet left before you're in the middle peak. So you're in the middle stitch of a peak. So if you turn it around you can see the bobbles are in motion. So let's go into the peak then, and in the peak there's going to be 3 single crochets. So 1, 2 and 3, and then start going down again. So the first one out is gonna be a single by itself, and then you start with your bobble. And then there's 2 singles in a row after that, and then a bobble. And then 2 singles again, and then a bobble. This is the 3rd one of the 4th of 4 bobbles. So 2 singles, and then this is the last bobble going in. I'm subconsciously keeping count of the bobble. I'm using that as my guide. And once the last bobble is in, you're going to single crochet into the next one, and you should be in the valley. So the next 2 are in the valley, and if you give it a quick turn around you'll see that there's 4 bobbles. So jumping over those 2, single into the next, so it's the 3rd one away, and then start bobbling into the one after that. And then eventually you'll come to the other side. So if you're coming to a peak you just have to go up over the top with 3 single crochets into the same one at the peak, and then come back up and go back up and down, and then at the end of this, as I'm doing now, we'll finish in the up motion. So just remember there's 2 singles that separate those bobbles in the main section itself. It's just different for when you're on the very bottom or the top of a peak. It's just 1 instead of 2 in a row. Okay, so I can see that there's 3 bobbles in there. So I'm gonna do my last one. And then finally 1 single to the next, and in the very turning chain here just go right into a chain itself, don't go into a space, and put in 2 single crochets, and then that'll conclude off this row, and now you officially have your texture starting, and this is officially row number 3. So in the pattern you're going to notice in the write-up that it has instructions that we're going to be repeating then rows number 2 and 3. So rows number 14 to 13 is repeating rows number 2 and 3, and then the 14th is repeating the row number 2 again, and then you break there and you turn and you change it to the new color, and this is the houndstooth that's starting in row number 15. So what we need to do before we can get to show you how to do this, I need to make sure that whatever row that I'm finishing, so if you want to change the height of any of these striping for yourself, just make sure that you are finishing so that row 2 is the last row before switching over. So let's review row number 2 once again. So as we begin to move on to the next section, remember row 2 is going to be the ending. So whatever you're going to do, you're just going to chain up 3 and just do 1 double into the same one. So you're going to go 12 going down, you're going to skip the 2 middle ones, 12 going up, and then you'll put 3 into the middle one here. 12 going down, 12 going up. So you'll skip over the 2 middles and then eventually you'll be at the end. So I've already demonstrated row number 2, so please do this and then I'm gonna get ready to show you the next section of this pattern. So I've now just finished row number 2. So if I wanted to continue the bobbles, I can just do row number 3 again and continue to add more and more bobbles as we go. You can even like change the idea of whatever you would like to do in this particular case, right? Like just changing colors for the bobbles, it's up to you. But eventually you're going to want to switch over to the other color, or the other color plus the other texture. So I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna fasten off just as a demonstration here today. And so I'm just going to trim my yarn and I'm just gonna pull it through the very final. And I want to get myself ready, and I'm gonna turn it over to the back side so the bobbles will be facing down away from you. And I want to throw this through a tapestry needle. Now you can weave in your ends, but the tapestry is the best way to go. And I'm just gonna stay on the back side and just weave it through the underside of the stitch. So I don't want to touch anything on the tops here because we need to crochet there. And we're just gonna go once, twice, and 3 times as a charm. And I'm gonna switch to a new color and then we'll demonstrate the next pattern that is in this one, the houndstooth, and that's a really fun one too. So let's begin and let's look at the pattern again. Now we're going to begin row number 15. So you'll end up finishing on a row number 2 and you'll change your color. So row number 15 is the actual just houndstooth. So row number 15 is repeated over and over. So I put number 16 here just to show you how it will puzzle together, but the same instruction is row number 15. So you'll see in the written instructions it says rows number 16 through 21 are repeating number 15. So it's just this one instruction which I'm about to show you. So you'll do that and then you'll switch back for 22nd to 23rd rows, so repeat number 2 and 3, and then you see there. So you can see that there's a small strip of just bobbles kind of in between things. So she did it in a way that it makes sense to have like almost a random look for this particular concept for the coloring, but again it's your creativity, you can decide. Let's begin row number 15. Begin row number 15 and we're gonna be starting off on the wrong side. So you'll notice that the even numbers on this are the right side and the odd numbers are the wrong side. So I should not see the bobbles when I'm going to start this particular section. So I'm going to join it to the top of the first stitch. Just use a slip stitch just to join, and I want to chain up 1 and I want to put 2 single crochets in the very first one. So 1 and 2. And then we're going to start the houndstooth stitching next. So what we're going to do then is that we're still gonna skip the 2 middle ones, and it's really obvious where those are right at the moment. You'll see those ones, but what we want to do is that we want to alternate the stitches. So we're going to double crochet in the next, and there's still only 12 stitches in a row, so we're gonna double crochet in the next and then single into the one after that. So double crochet into the next and then single to the one after that. So double and single and double and single and double and single and double and single. So the last one before you jumping is the single, so just keep that in mind. So when you look at it from this perspective, you see a little bit of textures now popping out the other side. So once you start to ready to go up, you're gonna skip the 2 middle and start in the third. Start off with the single and then begin again. So you're gonna do double, single, double, single. So I'll stay quiet now. So you'll finish with the double crochet as your very last one before you hit the middle one of the grouping of 3. So that'll be a double. So what we have to do in the middle one here, we have to start off, because that's a double, we have to start off with a single, and then the same one in the middle is going to be a double, and then we're still in the middle then for a single, and that will keep us in balance with this particular concept. We're going to start coming down the other side, and we start off with a double to begin, and that makes sense because the last one in this grouping of 3 was a single. So it's a double and single and double and single, and I'll stay quiet, keep doing that. So the last one before the middle should be a single. So let's go up. So we're just skipping the first 2, and we start off immediately with the single, and then a double, and then a single, and then a double, and keep doing that going up. Okay, the second last stitch should be a double, and then you're on the very last one. So how we finish the last one matters. So it's going to be a single because we've just finished with the double, and then the next one will be in the same one will be a double, and that will keep us in balance for the stitching. And then you can turn your work, and you can see a bit of the texture that is popping through, and that's row number 15. So that row gets repeated, and I'll show it to you one more time. So row number 16 would be this, but it's considered 15, so just keep repeating 15, and you're just gonna chain up 1, and we are going to put 2 singles in the first one, and then the next one that we're coming out of here is going to be a double. So do you see that it's currently doesn't have a lot in it? That means that's a single. So then the double sits on top of the single. That's what makes it the houndstooth. So the next one, do you see how it's fatter? So that one's a single, and you see the next one, there's not much to it, that's a double, and you're just a matter of just repeating. So I wouldn't worry about that so much, just keep your count. So if that was single, I would go double and single and double and single and double. And I do this in my head as far as counting like that, so it becomes something that's second nature to you once you really get moving on this thing. So the very last one should be a single before you're gonna jump over the 2 middle. So that was a single, so I'm gonna jump over the 2 middle and begin. So I single and then double, and do that all the way to the top of the peak. And then eventually you'll come out to the very middle one in just a moment. And in order to do the middle one, so this is ending in a double, the middle one is a single first, and then a double, and then a single, all in the same one. And now we're gonna come down the other side. So we're starting off, you can see which one do you start with. There's not much to it, right? So that has to be a double, and that's as per the pattern too. So it's a double, single. And the last one in the down motion should be a single before jumping over the 2 middle ones that you can see. So when you jump over, you're going to immediately jump to the third one. Do you see that there's a lot there? So this still is going to only start with the single, but because there's a lot there, we know that we're starting off right. And so it'd be single, double, and single, double, and keep on going up and down in the same motion across. So eventually you come over to the end of the party in the very last stitch. There's two things to do. So you're gonna single crochet first because that's the next one that's in line, and then double, and then that's what you would need to do. So in order to go back, and once you're done with this particular concept, so if we just lay this down, so once you're done with this particular stitch work, you're then going to go back and you'll do rows number 2 and 3 all over again, which will give you this flat space. So this texture here is not too severe, so it should not impact you at all in the sense of like lying on top of this thing, but it's really awesome, and it is a two-sided texture for that particular stitch work as well. But the way that Jeannie's designed it, so when we're doing this, that it will look right each and every time, and that the main part of that texture will appear on the right side. So this is how you do the stepping textures. Just refer to the diagram for any information or the instructions for anything that you need to watch for, and it's actually pretty awesome if you don't want to change the colors as often as she did, or you want to add more. The creativity is really up to you, and that's it for today. Have a great day, and we hope to see you again right here on the Crochet Crowd and yarnspirations.com.